Look, Kat, it's a great pleasure to be speaking to somebody in the beautiful island of Antigua.
Thank you.
Just as a way of introduction, could you just say briefly what took you to Antigua?
Yes, actually, burnout brought me to Antigua, and then listening to my intuition, I felt like I had no option. So I'd been working for 6 years as a communications director for the Homeless World Cup, and it was an incredible project, helping people who are homeless come off drugs and alcohol, get into jobs, homes, reunite with families. And we grew that from 20 to 70 countries in just 5 years. And so I was on a plane every week to a different country, different continent most of the time. And it really caught up with me. And so I also, the emotion of that caught up with me as well, when you're working with people who are sort of at the lowest ebb of their lives and fighting for a new opportunity, and you're dealing with genocide and environmental, destruction. You begin to need a break. And so I came to Antigua, and I had never heard of Antigua, and I was drawn by the classic white sandy beaches and turquoise seas. And I spent a month here, floating every day in the sea, and that really healed my burnout, and it's become my home. And I now bring women here for business retreats to connect to their creativity and to their hearts. I work with heart intelligence now for creativity too, so that that can lead in their business, and they can grow a business that's aligned with who they are, and also the intelligence of life and the natural flow of life, so they feel much more in harmony and flow rather than busy and stressed. So yeah, that's where we are.
Okay, well, excellent. Well, we don't often associate burnout with creativity, because creativity, very often we think of passion, enthusiasm, and obviously what you're doing, you're extremely passionate about what you're doing. You're committed, you're dedicated, which are the hallmarks of a creative person. They tend to not make boundaries between what is personal life and what is work life and whatever. So these boundaries between work and play are kind of tend to be very, very fragile. So, what is the association of burnout and creativity? What do you think leads some creative people to burnout?
It's interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot, and what I think it comes down to is creative people. You're connected, and you receive this amazing blast of inspiration, and then you get big, which is that for me that's pure creativity when you're inspired. And then when you're in business, traditional business, you get dictated by external goals and pressures, and traditional business is driven by profit. And so, you have all of these time scales and budgets, and that can become, you have to achieve X, Y, Z by this point. And so you then disconnect from your own inner wisdom and your own inner rhythm, and you become dictated to by an external pressure. And because we're not taught this, you then become on the hamster wheel, and you become busy, and before you know it, you've kind of you're going down the motorway at 90 miles an hour, and you can't stop. And that's what I've learned. That's why I love working now. When I left the Homeless World Cup, I looked at burnout and how I'd come to burnout, and I had a lot of shame around it as well initially, which was that I shouldn't have burnt out. I should have known better. I should have been able to manage myself better, and all of those things. And I watched a wonderful documentary by Pixar, and in Toy Story 2, the whole team burnt out and couldn't work for a whole year. So, and since I've been investigating it, when you look at the money lost in business from burnout is extreme. It runs into sort of billions and billions, double figures of billions. And you think, well, this is an issue that we should really be looking at. And for me, it's when you disconnect with your own wisdom and your own inner rhythm, and you're dictated by, a made up external goal of profit. And when you come back to yourself and you start listening to your own intuition, then you get back into the flow, and you get back into listening, following your own creativity. And that's when you're well, that's when you're deeply fulfilled, that's when you're inspired, and that's when the real creativity comes. So yeah, for me, burnout is when you've sort of tripped up and you've disconnected from your own inner wisdom, and you're following, external pressures, I would say.
But as you say, very often we can't get away from those pressures because those deadlines, we don't set the deadlines. The deadlines have been set. And
Yeah,
like when you talk about being involved with a multimedia company such as Pixar, you know, we don't get to choose when that deadline is, you know, because
yeah,
certain other people are dependent on our work.
exactly.
So,
Exactly. So how do we deal with that?
yes.
Well, it's funny. When I was at university myself in like 94, 95, it's a long time ago, I actually was even looking at this then, and I was looking at business models, and my conclusion to my thesis was that a business model that allowed the creative spirit and creativity to thrive, and therefore wellness of a human being, because to be well, our creativity, who we are, our spirit needs to be intrinsically part of that. That there wasn't a business model that allowed your creativity to thrive and therefore wellness to be present in business. So I think I've spent the last 20 years proving that to be so. And then, so now I've designed a business model that puts your creative spirit at the heart of it. So your creative spirit leads. It's aligned, your business is aligned with your true nature and purpose. So who you are and what you came here for. I believe that everyone has a true purpose that you're born with. You find it within your heart intelligence. And that's when you feel relaxed and natural and fulfilled and on the right path and clear and confident about who you are and what you're here for in the world. And that you listen to your own intuition and your own heart intelligence. And when we do that, I've seen that prosperity thrives as well. It's not just about making money at the expense of people's wellness, at the expense of the earth. Everything thrives, you know, when creativity is put right at the heart of it, and that's respected and revered and listened to. So, you know, when you then have to take a rest, you take a rest. There's a beautiful DJ that has just died, Avicii. He made amazing music, and his whole purpose was to make music. But in the current traditional business model, he was just basically flogged like a horse. He was on too many tours, and you know, and he ended his own life. And you think that's such a shame that we've got all these brilliant people that are very creative and who are being damaged by the current business model. So I believe we need a new business model that puts creativity at the heart of business, and that's respected and revered and listened to, because that's where the inspiration comes from. That's where the passion comes from. That's where everything comes from. So
Did I hear you say that he took his own life?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
That's very sad. I mean, that's the extreme of burnout, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, and that's what happens in Japan, you know, where they're very, you know, they're very intense, aren't they, on their working precision and productivity and pushing. And yeah, and I just don't think it's helpful for humans. And also you miss out on all the brilliance and the creativity that's, you know, that's no longer there when you're heading towards burnout. So yeah.
I noticed that you work with women, that you plan these projects for women. Do you think that there's a gender difference between women's creativity and the way men express creativity?
Not that I've become aware of. No, I think that, you know, at the heart of everybody, there's a balance of masculine and feminine traits. And when they're in balance, when you're in, because, you know, the more feminine qualities are associated with creativity, I suppose, of like receiving and stillness and listening. But when they're balanced with then, you know, taking action and moving forward with those in the world, when that's in balance, it's fluid, and it's perfection. It's beautiful. So that's at the heart of everyone, has been my experience. And I find that we can all go out of balance with our masculine and feminine traits. Some people are that. I mean, that's a form of burnout too, is when you're just out in the world taking action and not receiving you know, your inspiration and what you need for yourself. So, but I haven't noticed a gender difference with creativity. No, I don't think it has a gender. That's exciting.
Perhaps maybe not gender, but perhaps you know, because you keep using the term feminine as opposed to masculine, which is quite different. Some men can be very feminine and some women can be very masculine. So we're talking about the traits rather than the traits in terms of receptive as opposed to striving to achieve goals. And
exactly.
and
That's one of the things that Antigua's taught me, because the culture here is very much about allowing, going with the flow, relaxing. I mean, the guys under the tree here are very, they talk about allowing your true nature to come out and for that to lead. You just need to relax. So, rather than this leaning in, it's like lean back, relax, allow life to do its thing as well. The sun will come up in the morning. You don't need to push it. So really bringing that in to work with your own creative spirit, then you become more in flow. That's been my experience. Yeah.
The scenario that you've just illustrated reminds me of a joke. It's a cartoon, and you might have seen it yourself, where there is a business person dressed in his business suit, and he's on an island. It could be Antigua, and he's talking to someone who lives there, and he's just lying on the beach, and the businessman is trying to sell him this proposal of like, well, if you do this, follow this system, then you'll be able to kind of like be successful. And the person who actually lives there and says like, well, if I do all of that, what will I get at the end of it? And he says, well, you'll be able to lie on the beach, and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just put ourselves in the environment. That's what I love about the new business model, which I call True Business, and it's been trialed by 200 entrepreneurs and coaches and authors and artists and consultants around the world in 14 countries. And what I found, when they put their creative spirit at the center of it and listen to their own intelligence and align with their true purpose, then the masculine and feminine qualities are in balance. They're in harmony with the flow of life. They're being of service. They're creating a legacy. It really is, business is then contributing, and they're living the life that they want to. So they're not sort of struggling and sweat. There's no blood, sweat and tears. It's effortless. It's they're enjoying it themselves. They're fulfilling their potential. They're making their contribution. It's not like they're delaying. They're having to put on this hard graft to then enjoy life later. They're immersed in enjoying it now, and that's what I think is really important that we're missing in business right now is the effortless, the ease, the relaxation. We're taught to lean in and push and force and make it happen, and that leads to burnout and your creativity lost.
That's right, because for a lot of people, work is about delayed gratification. We work so that at the end of, and it could be a very long journey, and then we can enjoy it. Whereas what you seem to be describing is more prosperity rather than profitability. Exactly
that. Yeah, exactly that. And I think that profit comes with too many costs at the moment in business. The health and the well-being of people, mental health is sacrificed. We see people polluting rivers and not taking those costs into account, and then people becoming sick. I mean, that's just completely unacceptable to me, I think. And when we connect with our creative spirit and our heart intelligence, it's not there. You wouldn't, you're in alignment with the rest of the world. So you're not polluting rivers, and you're not, you would come up with a better system than that. So yeah, it's just laziness, I think, traditional business. I would love and encourage people to do is to listen to their heart intelligence, and because that's for me where the exciting creativity is. I think we can create things from our logical minds, and they don't move people. They can be precise and impressive, but they're quite cold. And I think to bring heart into your creativity, because that's where the wisdom is, that's where the expansion is, and that's where the adventure is. So to really start working with the heart intelligence. And what I mean by that is, when you go into a state of meditation and you reach a place of calm and connection, to create from there rather than from the frenetic world that we often live in. So create from that calm heart center of who you really are and what you're here for. And then that's when you make a beautiful contribution to the world and a legacy.